My name is Clara Bennett, 27 years old, a painter who lives in a cramped apartment filled with canvases stacked against the walls. I earn what little I can from small commissions and the occasional gallery showcase, though most days the art barely pays for my groceries. That has never bothered me much. I never craved attention or wealth. What I wanted was connection, love, and the steady warmth of family. But my family was complicated, and in the quiet hours of night, when the city fell still and the smell of turpentine clung to my hands, I could not shake the truth. My mother Grace loved me, yes, but she adored my sister Vivian more. Vivian, 3 years older, had always been the star. She had the perfect smile, the confidence that lit up a room, and the kind of charm people called effortless. She married Daniel, a man with the kind of income and polished manners my mother admired. Together they owned a suburban house that looked like something from a glossy magazine. Shiny windows, manicured lawn, a porch swing that no one actually sat on. I never envied Vivian's life, not really. But I noticed the way Mom looked at her, with the kind of admiration usually reserved for saints. Vivian could do no wrong in Grace's eyes. Every flaw was brushed aside with, "She means well." Every misstep was forgiven before anyone had a chance to be angry. Meanwhile, I was the quiet one, the helper, the daughter who cleaned up after storms, literal and metaphorical. When Vivian wrecked Mom's car at 19, I was the one who sat with Mom in the insurance office, sorting paperwork. When Vivian forgot Mom's birthday one year, I baked the cake, bought the flowers, and pretended the gifts were from both of us. Mom had smiled with teary eyes and said, "Vivian's just busy, Clara. You're such a blessing." A blessing. That was what she called me. Sweet, dependable Clara. The one who blended into the background while Vivian took center stage. It might have stayed that way forever if not for the illness. The first sign came on a damp October afternoon. Mom had just moved into the little guest house at the back of Vivian's property. She had insisted it was temporary, just until she felt stronger. I was helping her unpack boxes, folding her sweaters into drawers that smelled faintly of cedar. "Rebecca," she said, then caught herself. "Sorry, Clara." She had always confused our names when she was tired, but this time the slip felt heavier. Her face was pale, her hands trembling as she tried to lift a box of books. "Mom, sit down," I said gently, guiding her toward the small sofa. "I'll handle the rest." "I'm fine," she protested weakly, but her voice trailed off. That evening we got the results. Lymphoma. 6 months to a year, the doctor said. My world tilted. I called Vivian as soon as I left the clinic. My voice shook as I said, "It's bad, Viv." The doctor said it's lymphoma. Advanced. There was silence on the other end, then Vivian's flat response. "Well, that sucks. But at least she has her little house here. That's something, right?" I gripped the phone tighter, disbelief rising in my chest. "That's all you have to say?" "She's dying, Vivian." "Dying." "What do you want me to do?" she snapped. "Drop everything and become her private nurse?" "I have a life too, Clara." "You could start by showing compassion," I shot back. "Take her to an appointment. Spend some time with her." Vivian sighed dramatically. "I'm doing what I can. Let's not make this about you, okay?" I hung up before the tears could spill. There was no point. Vivian would always twist things until she was the victim. As Mom's treatments began, she grew weaker. She asked me to manage her day-to-day care, meals, medications, sitting with her through the endless hours of fatigue. Vivian, however, had taken over the finances. Mom said she trusted her with a bank account. I didn't like it, but I let it go. Maybe I thought Vivian would finally step up. Weeks later, Mom's voice wavered as she asked, "Clara, could you check my balance at the bank? Just to make sure there's enough for the bills." "Of course," I said, brushing a strand of her silver hair from her face. "Don't worry." At the bank, the teller handed me the statement. My heart sank. The account was nearly empty. The savings Mom had built after selling her car gone. My eyes fell on one withdrawal, massive, unmistakable. Signed, Vivian Stone. I stepped outside, the autumn air like knives against my skin. With trembling hands, I dialed Vivian. "What's up?" she answered casually, as though nothing in the world was wrong. "Why the hell did you drain Mom's account?" My voice shook with fury. A pause. Then her defensive tone. "Clara, calm down. It's not what you think." "Not what I think. Her account is empty. Your name is on the withdrawal." "It's a loan, okay?" she said sharply. "We needed money for repairs. I was going to put it back. Mom doesn't even need it right now." "A loan?" I almost laughed. "You took every penny without asking. She's sick, Vivian. That money was hers." "Don't be so dramatic," she snapped. "I'll pay it back. You're blowing this out of proportion." "You're disgusting," I whispered, anger burning through me. "Mom's worried about paying for groceries." "Groceries, Vivian. Do you understand how humiliating this is?" "She won't find out," Vivian said coldly. "Because you won't tell her." I froze. "Why wouldn't I?" "Because it'll stress her out. She doesn't need that. If you care about her, you'll let it go. Stop trying to make me the villain." I hung up, unable to hear another word. My chest ached as I stood on the busy sidewalk, people rushing past, unaware that my world had cracked open. I wanted to tell Mom. I wanted to scream the truth. But the thought of her fragile body breaking under the weight of betrayal stopped me cold. That night I called Laura, my best friend since college. "She took everything," I whispered, voice breaking. Laura's breathing quickened on the other end. "And she expects you to keep quiet?" "She says it's a loan." I paced my apartment, staring at the unfinished canvas propped against the wall. "She's acting like she's doing Mom a favor." "Clara, you can't let her get away with this," Laura said firmly. "What if she doesn't pay it back? Your mom needs that money." "I know. But if I tell Mom, it'll crush her. Vivian knows that. She's using it against me." "Of course she is. She knows you're too kind to blow it up." Laura's voice softened. "But Clara, someone has to hold her accountable." I pressed a hand to my forehead. "Vivian doesn't listen. She never has. And Daniel, he's worse. Always smug. Always backing her up." Laura was quiet for a moment, then asked, "Does Daniel know about the money?" "Probably," I admitted bitterly. "They're always in it together." "You're not alone in this," she said gently. "But you need to stand your ground." Her words sparked something in me, a flicker of strength. But beneath it all was a storm of fear, guilt, and fury I didn't know how to contain. The next morning, I drove to Mom's little guest house with a knot in my chest. She was curled up in her recliner, wrapped in the quilt she'd had since my childhood. Her face lit up when she saw me. "There's my sweet girl," she said, her voice thin but warm. "I was hoping you'd come early." I kissed her cheek and tried to smile, though my stomach churned with the secret I carried. "Of course, Mom. Did you sleep at all?" "A little," she admitted. "I dreamed of your father. He was planting tomatoes in the garden. Isn't that funny? He hated tomatoes." She laughed softly, then sighed. I busied myself making her tea, anything to avoid her eyes. I wanted so badly to tell her about the money, but I couldn't. If she knew Vivian had stolen from her, it would devastate her. She still believed Vivian was perfect. "Clara," she said suddenly, "promise me something." I turned. "Anything." "Promise you won't fight with your sister." Her gaze was steady, pleading. "I need both of you, now more than ever. I can't bear the thought of you two at odds." Her words cut deeper than a knife. I forced a smile. "I promise, Mom." But inside, I was already breaking that promise. That evening, I called Vivian again. "You need to return the money," I said firmly. "All of it."
"Now," she scoffed.
"You're unbelievable. Always writing me."
"This isn't about me.
"This is about Mom. She needs that money for treatment, and you took it." Vivian's voice sharpened. "Don't lecture me, Clara. I'm handling things the best way I can. You don't understand what Daniel and I are dealing with." "What you're dealing with?" My anger boiled over. "You live in a beautiful house. You take vacations. And you think it's okay to rob Mom while she's dying?" "She'll be fine," Vivian snapped. "Insurance covers most of it. You're just looking for reasons to hate me." I clenched the phone so hard my hand hurt. "I don't need reasons, Vivian. You hand me new ones every day. There was a long silence before she said coldly, "If you tell her, you'll regret it." The threat hung between us like poison. For days, I lived in a fog of rage and fear. I poured myself into painting, but even the canvas betrayed me. My strokes were harsh, my colors too dark. Laura came by one afternoon and stood in front of the half-finished piece. "Clara," she said gently, "this isn't your style. It looks angry." I dropped the brush. "Maybe that's all I am now." She touched my arm. "You're exhausted. You can't carry this alone." But I did. I carried Mom's illness, Vivian's betrayal, Daniel's smug silence. And still, when Mom called me her blessing, I swallowed the truth and smiled. A week later, I arrived at the guest house to find Daniel in the driveway, loading bags into his car. "Heading out?" I asked, my tone clipped.
He smirked.
"Business trip." "Convenient," I muttered. His eyes narrowed. "What's that supposed to mean?" "You know exactly what I mean. Vivian drained Mom's account, and you just stood by." He shrugged. "It's a family matter. None of your business." "She's my mother," I snapped. "It's very much my business." He leaned closer, his voice low and venomous. "You've always been jealous, Clara. Always the second-best daughter, the struggling artist. You hate that Vivian has everything you don't." The words hit hard, but I refused to flinch. I don't want what Vivian has. I just want my mother to be treated with respect. He smirked again, climbing into his car. "Then maybe stop acting like such a martyr." The engine roared, and he drove off, leaving me shaking with fury. Inside, Mom was dozing in her chair. I sat quietly beside her, listening to her shallow breaths. She stirred after a while and whispered, "Vivian's been busy. She hardly visits anymore. But you're always here, Clara. Always steady." Her words warmed me, but they also broke me. She didn't know the truth. She didn't see the theft, the neglect, the coldness of the daughter she adored. I wanted to scream it at her. "Mom, Vivian doesn't care. She stole from you. She left you here to rot while she played perfect wife." But instead I held her hand and said softly, "I'll always be here, Mom. Always." The days blurred into each other. Treatments, nausea, endless fatigue. Vivian dropped by occasionally, bringing flowers or store-bought cookies, acting like the dutiful daughter. Mom's eyes always lit up, and I stood in the background, invisible. One evening, after Vivian left, Mom squeezed my hand. "You know, she tries so hard. Don't be too hard on her." I bit my tongue until it bled. One rainy night, I found myself pacing my apartment, unable to sleep. Laura called, her voice sharp with worry. "You sound like you're unraveling, Clara." "Maybe I am," I whispered. "I can't tell Mom. I can't confront Vivian again. I'm trapped."
"Then document it," Laura said.
"What?" "Keep records. Statements, dates, conversations. If Vivian won't make it right, you'll need proof. For when the time comes." Her words sent a shiver through me.
Proof.
Evidence. A record of betrayal. I opened my sketchbook that night, but instead of drawing, I wrote. I wrote down the withdrawals, the dates, the things Vivian had said. My sketchbook became a ledger of lies. It was the only power I had left. As winter crept in, Mom grew weaker. She spent more time in bed, her once bright laugh fading into whispers. I cooked her soup, read to her, brushed her hair when she was too tired to lift a comb. Vivian stopped by less and less. When she did, she was full of excuses, meetings, obligations, Daniel's work dinners. Mom forgave every absence with a smile. "She's busy," she'd say softly. "But she loves me, Clara. I know she does." And I would nod, swallowing the truth like poison. But inside me, something dark was growing. A resolve I couldn't name yet, only feel. Because one day, I promised myself, Vivian would pay. The summer heat pressed down heavy, clinging to the walls of the little guest house where Mom now spent almost all her time in bed. The air smelled faintly of antiseptic and wilted flowers. I kept the curtains drawn to shield her from the glare, but sometimes she asked me to open them, just for a while, so she could watch the breeze ripple through the trees. Her body was failing her quickly now. Walking was out of the question. Even sitting upright for long left her drained. I spoon-fed her soup, held water to her lips, and read aloud from her favorite books. She smiled through the pain, always thanking me as though I were giving her something extraordinary instead of the simplest acts of care. "Do you ever get tired of me, Clara?" she asked one afternoon, her voice fragile. "Never," I said firmly. "Not once." Her eyes glistened. "You've given up so much for me." I brushed her hair gently, untangling the thinning strands. "You gave me everything first, Mom. I'm just giving a little back." She closed her eyes, a faint smile lingering. Vivian's visits grew fewer, her excuses more elaborate. There was always a dinner, an event, Daniel's schedule to consider. When she did come, it was a spectacle. Arms full of flowers or expensive chocolates, dressed as though she were stepping out of a magazine. She sat by the bed for half an hour, making sure Mom saw her devotion, then slipped out, leaving me with the long night ahead. Mom never saw the emptiness in those gestures. To her, Vivian's presence was proof of love. "She's trying so hard," she'd whisper after Vivian left, squeezing my hand. "Don't be too harsh on her." I nodded, swallowing the bitterness that rose like bile. Daniel appeared even less often, though his shadow loomed over every conversation. When he did show up, he treated the guest house like an inconvenience, tapping at his phone, checking his watch. One evening, as I prepared Mom's medication, he muttered, "She should be in a facility. This isn't sustainable." I turned on him, fury sparking. This is her home. She deserves to be comfortable, not abandoned in some sterile place. He raised a brow. "Comfortable? She's deteriorating. Vivian and I have lives, Clara. We can't revolve everything around this." "This?" My voice shook. "You mean her? Our mother?" Daniel didn't flinch. "Call it what you like. You can martyr yourself if you want, but don't expect us to do the same." I wanted to scream, to throw something, but Mom stirred, murmuring softly. I swallowed my rage and turned back to her, shutting Daniel out like a locked door. My art suffered. Canvases stood half-finished, covered in jagged strokes and harsh colors. What had once been an escape now felt like a mirror I couldn't face. I painted feverishly some nights, pouring anger and grief onto the canvas until my arms ached. Other nights, I couldn't even lift a brush. Laura visited often, bringing groceries, sitting with Mom, so I could shower or nap. She watched me closely, worry etched into every glance. "You can't go on like this forever," she whispered one evening as we sat on the porch. "I don't have a choice," I replied. "There's always a choice." "Not for me. Not while she needs me." Laura sighed, touching my hand. "Just promise me you won't lose yourself completely, Clara. When this is over, you'll need something left to live for." Her words haunted me because deep down, I feared she was right. By August, Mom's decline was undeniable. Her once bright eyes grew dull, her laughter rare. She spoke often of Dad, recalling memories from decades ago as if they'd happened yesterday. Sometimes she confused me with Vivian, which broke me in ways I couldn't admit. One evening, as I tucked the blanket around her, she whispered, "Vivian's always been so strong, hasn't she?" I froze, then forced a smile. "Yes, Mom. She'll take care of things when I'm gone. I don't worry about her. But you," she reached for my hand, her gaze searching. "You feel too much, Clara. Promise me you'll protect your heart." Tears blurred my vision. "I'll try, Mom." She nodded, closing her eyes. "That's all I ask." The money, what Vivian had stolen, haunted me. Every bill that arrived, every cost of medication, every grocery run reminded me of what had been taken. I tried again to confront her, cornering her outside the guest house one afternoon. "You can't keep pretending, Vivian," I hissed. "Mom needs that money. She could have had better treatment, maybe more time. And you stole it." Vivian rolled her eyes. "I don't need this drama. It's not drama. It's life and death." "You think you know everything, but you don't," she snapped. Daniel has plans. Investments. You'll see when it pays off. Mom doesn't have time for your investments. My voice cracked. She needs help now. Vivian's face hardened. Don't talk to me like I'm some villain. You chose this role, nurse, caretaker, martyr. That's your choice, not mine. Because someone had to choose it, I spat. And you never would. She turned on her heel, her perfume lingering like poison in the air. As autumn approached, I felt time slipping away. Each day, Mom seemed to shrink, her voice softer, her smile fainter. I held on to every moment desperately, knowing the end was near. One night, as I sat by her bed, she stirred and whispered, "Clara, promise me you'll forgive her." My heart clenched. Who, Mom? Vivian. Her eyes glistened. She means well in her own way. Don't carry anger after I'm gone. I bit my lip so hard I tasted blood. I'll try. She smiled faintly, drifting back to sleep. But inside, I knew it was a promise I couldn't keep. The leaves turned gold and red, and with them, the days grew shorter. The guest house felt darker, the air heavier. Laura urged me to prepare, but how could I prepare for losing the one person who had always seen me, always loved me without question? I painted again, but the canvases were different now, softer, filled with muted colors, as though I were trying to hold onto the light before it disappeared. One evening, I found myself painting Mom's hands. Fragile, lined, veins visible beneath translucent skin. The hands that had once braided my hair, guided mine over a paintbrush, held me through nightmares. I painted until my tears blurred the canvas. Because I knew soon, those hands would be gone. The first frost arrived in October, turning the grass silver in the mornings. I wrapped Mom in extra blankets, keeping a fire going in the small hearth of the guest house. She grew colder easily now, her body fragile, every movement an effort. I tried to keep life gentle for her, soft music, warm tea, stories from our past. Sometimes she smiled, sometimes she simply closed her eyes and listened. I cherished each flicker of joy like a jewel. Vivian's visits dwindled to almost nothing. Once every couple of weeks, she'd sweep in with her perfume and bright clothes, staying long enough to remind Mom she existed. Each time, Mom's eyes lit up, grateful for her presence. Each time, I sat in the corner, my silence heavy with all the truths I couldn't speak. Daniel rarely appeared at all. When he did, he looked at his watch more than at my mother. One evening, after a short visit, he muttered to me at the door, "She doesn't have long. You should start making arrangements." My blood ran hot. "She's still alive, Daniel. She's not a business deal you can close." He smirked, stepping into the cold night. "You'll see. When it's over, Vivian and I will handle everything. Don't bother trying to play hero." His car pulled away, leaving exhaust fumes in the frozen air. I stood there trembling, my fists clenched. That night, Mom woke in pain. I held her, whispering comfort, helping her sip water until she calmed. She stared at me with tired eyes. "You look so tired, Clara," she murmured. "I'm fine," I whispered. "You can't fool me," she said softly. "You've carried so much. I wish I could take it from you." I kissed her forehead, tears slipping free. "I'd carry it 1,000 times over for you, Mom." She smiled faintly, drifting back to sleep. I sat awake long after, watching her chest rise and fall, memorizing every detail of her face. November brought storms. Rain lashed the windows, and the wind howled through the trees. Inside, the guest house felt like a fragile cocoon, sheltering us from the chaos outside. I painted again in the rare, quiet moments, small canvases, gentle colors. I found myself painting light, candles, sunrise, reflections on water. It felt like trying to capture something that was slipping through my fingers. Laura came by with groceries one stormy afternoon. She hugged me tightly, her coat damp from the rain. "You're vanishing, Clara," she whispered. "You've lost weight. You barely sleep." "I can't leave her," I said simply. "I'm not asking you to," Laura replied. "But let me help more. Please. You don't have to do this alone." Her words cracked something in me. I nodded, finally letting the tears fall. The holidays approached, though they felt hollow. Vivian promised to bring decorations, but she never did. I hung a few paper snowflakes in the window, set a small tree by Mom's bed, strung it with lights. When she saw it, her face lit up like a child's. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "Just like when you were little." I sat beside her, holding her hand. "Remember the year I painted ornaments instead of buying them?" She laughed softly. "They were terrible." "They were," I admitted, smiling. "But you hung them anyway." "I still have them," she said, her eyes sparkling with memory. "In the attic somewhere." The warmth of that moment carried me through the long night that followed. By December, Mom's decline was steep. She spoke less, slept more. Her grip on my hand grew weaker by the day. Sometimes she stared past me, as if already halfway gone. One night, she woke suddenly, clutching my hand. "Promise me," she whispered urgently. "I promise," I said quickly, though I didn't yet know what she meant. "Promise me you'll keep your light. Don't let the darkness win." My throat tightened. "I promise, Mom." She relaxed, drifting back into uneasy sleep. I sat there in the dim glow of the Christmas lights, wondering if I had lied. Vivian showed up on Christmas Day, draped in red silk, her hair perfect, Daniel by her side. She swept into the guest house, her voice bright. "Merry Christmas, Mom," she exclaimed, placing a large wrapped box at the foot of the bed. Mom's eyes sparkled as she opened it, revealing a cashmere blanket. "It's beautiful," she whispered, tears glistening. Vivian kissed her cheek. "Only the best for you." I stood in the corner, silent, watching the performance. When Mom dozed off later, I caught Vivian in the hallway. "You think a blanket erases what you did?" I hissed. Vivian's eyes flashed. "You're pathetic, Clara. Always judging, always bitter. No wonder no one wants to be around you." I stepped closer, my voice low. "When she's gone, the truth will come out, and then you'll have nothing." She smirked coldly. "We'll see." Daniel pulled her toward the door, smirking as if he'd already won. The new year began with silence. The tree came down. Snow fell heavy, blanketing everything in stillness. Mom's breaths grew shallow, her body still and frail. I sat by her side constantly, afraid to blink, afraid to miss a moment. One evening, as snowflakes drifted past the window, she whispered, "Clara?" "Yes, Mom." "You've been my joy, my heart. Don't ever forget that." Tears blurred my vision. "I won't. I swear." She smiled faintly, closing her eyes again. I held her hand all night, knowing time was running out. January dragged itself through the bitter cold, each day a battle between holding on and letting go. The guest house smelled of medicine and faint lavender, a mixture that clung to my clothes and hair. I no longer noticed it. My world had shrunk to the rhythm of my mother's breaths. Her hands trembled now when she reached for mine. Sometimes she whispered names from long ago, half asleep, tangled in memories. "Henry," she murmured once my father's name. "Don't go so far," her voice broke, and I whispered to her until she calmed, though I doubted she even heard. Sleep came to her in long stretches. I sat by her bed, sketchbook in hand, drawing her face in soft pencil lines. It felt like an act of preservation, trying to keep her alive in graphite and paper. Every stroke was love, fear, and grief bound together. Vivian called one evening. I almost didn't answer, but the phone rang persistently. "Clara," she said, her tone brisk, "Daniel and I can't make it until next weekend. We're going to the city for a gala." I closed my eyes, my jaw tight. "She doesn't have a weekend left in her, Vivian." Silence. Then a sharp exhale. "You always exaggerate. Mom's been dying for months." "She's fading, Vivian. Every day she slips further. Don't you want to be here?" Her voice cooled. "We'll come when we can. Don't guilt me." I wanted to scream. Instead, I ended the call and sat in the silence, trembling. Mom stirred faintly in her sleep, and I smoothed her hair, swallowing my rage. One night, After days of little food and restless sleep, I broke. I stumbled into the main house, leaving Laura by Mom's side. I collapsed on the floor of my old bedroom, clutching my knees, sobbing into the dark. The walls seemed to close in. The silence pressed against my ears until it roared. I pressed my forehead against the wooden floorboards and whispered, "I can't do this. I can't watch her die." But beneath the despair, another voice whispered, "You promised her." I thought of Mom's words, "Keep your light." My chest ached with the weight of it. I dragged myself up, washed my face, and returned to her side. Her eyes opened slightly as I entered. She smiled, faint but real. "You came back," she whispered. "I'll always come back," I said, taking her hand. The days blurred into one another. Snow piled outside, covering the world in silence. Inside, time felt suspended. One morning, she woke with surprising clarity. Her eyes shone as if lit from within. "Clara," she said softly, "I need you to listen." "I'm listening," I whispered.
"There's a letter," she said.
Her words came slow, labored. "For you. Not here, with Laura. Promise me you'll read it when I'm gone." My heart clenched. "Don't talk like that, Mom. Promise." Her gaze pinned me, fierce despite her weakness. "I promise," I whispered, tears falling freely. She relaxed, her hand going slack in mine. Vivian and Daniel finally arrived the next evening. The storm had cleared, leaving a glassy frost across the trees. They entered the guest house briskly, carrying the smell of cold air and expensive cologne. Vivian gasped when she saw Mom, her face paler, thinner than ever. "Oh my God, Clara. Why didn't you tell me it was this bad?" "I did," I said flatly. Daniel stood back, hands in his coat pockets, expression unreadable. Vivian perched on the bed, stroking Mom's hand with exaggerated tenderness. "Mom, it's me, Vivian. I'm here now." Mom opened her eyes faintly, managing a small smile. "My girls," she whispered. For a moment, the room stilled. I almost believed we were family again. But then Daniel broke the silence. "You should start considering hospice. It's irresponsible to keep dragging this out." I turned, fury burning in my chest. "She is not a burden. She's our mother." Daniel smirked, glancing at Vivian. "Some of us understand reality better than others." Vivian looked torn, her hand still resting on Mom's. For once, she said nothing. That night, Mom's breathing grew uneven. I sat awake, counting the pauses between each fragile inhale. At dawn, she stirred. Her lips moved, faintly forming words I almost didn't catch. "Don't forget the light." Her eyes closed again, her chest rising shallowly. I pressed my forehead to her hand, sobbing quietly. Vivian slept on the couch, her makeup smudged, Daniel dozing in a chair. They looked like strangers in the soft morning light, out of place in this sacred vigil. I realized then that grief would never touch them the way it touched me. They would walk away when it was done, but I would carry it forever. The following days were a slow unraveling. Mom barely woke at all. The nurse Laura had arranged came by daily, adjusting medication, checking her vitals, offering me gentle words. "She's comfortable," the nurse assured me. "That's the best we can give her now." Comfort. The word felt fragile. I sat beside her, reading aloud from her favorite books. Sometimes I sang softly, old lullabies she once sang to me. My voice cracked, but I kept going. One afternoon, as the winter sun streamed weakly through the window, I noticed her hand twitching faintly in mine. I leaned close. "I'm here, Mom," I whispered. "Always." Her lips curved into the smallest smile. Vivian grew restless. One evening, she snapped at me. "This is unbearable. Just watching her fade. I can't stand it." "Then leave," I said coldly. Her eyes widened. "How can you say that?" "Because this isn't about you, Vivian. It's about her. And she deserves someone who can sit through the unbearable." She looked at me as if I were a stranger. Daniel touched her arm, guiding her toward the door. "Let her have her martyrdom," he muttered. They left, their absence like a vacuum sucking away the last traces of normal life. I was alone again with Mom. And though the loneliness was heavy, I preferred it. I read to her until my voice cracked. I painted small canvases of the winter sky and propped them where she could see. I whispered memories into her ear, even if I wasn't sure she heard. Each moment felt like sand slipping through an hourglass. No matter how tightly I tried to hold, it kept falling. One night, I dreamed she was young again, laughing in the garden, her hair shining in the sun. I woke with tears streaming, reaching for her hand. Her skin was cool, but she was still breathing. I whispered into the darkness, "I'm not ready." But the truth pressed against me. I never would be. The house was unbearably quiet after Mom's last breath. I sat at her bedside, my hand still wrapped around hers, though her skin had already cooled. The winter wind rattled the window, and outside the snow fell gently, muffling the world in silence. Inside, I couldn't hear anything but the echo of her absence. For hours, I didn't move. My body ached, my eyes burned, but I couldn't let go. Not yet. Eventually, Laura arrived with a nurse. Their voices were soft, respectful, but the moment they touched Mom, I broke. I pulled away, retreating into the corner like a child hiding from monsters. "No," I whispered. "Don't take her. Please." Laura knelt beside me, tears in her own eyes. "Clara, she's gone. You don't have to let go, but we have to do this." I shook my head until the world spun, but in the end, I could only watch as they prepared her body, wrapped her in blankets, and carried her away. The sight of the door closing behind them hollowed me out completely. The funeral came quickly, a blur of black clothes and murmured condolences. Vivian orchestrated it all with Daniel at her side, making choices without asking me what flowers, what music, even what dress Mom would wear. She'd want it elegant, Vivian insisted, her voice clipped. She'd want it honest. I muttered under my breath, but no one heard me. People filled the church, faces from childhood, neighbors, distant relatives. They approached me with kind words. She was such a wonderful woman.
"She'll be missed."
Each phrase felt like a stone thrown into my hollow chest, bouncing off the emptiness inside. When it was my turn to speak, I stood before them trembling. My throat closed, but I forced words out anyway. "She was my best friend," I whispered. She gave me everything. She taught me love, and she taught me strength. I don't know how to breathe without her." My voice broke, and silence spread through the church. Vivian shifted uncomfortably in the front row, her eyes darting toward Daniel. I ignored them. I returned to my seat, clutching the folded program in my lap until my knuckles whitened. When the service ended, people approached Vivian first, offering condolences, shaking Daniel's hand. I stood to the side, invisible in my grief. After the burial, I couldn't return to the main house. I stayed in the guest house, the walls still echoing with Mom's voice, the sheets still carrying her faint scent. I slept in her bed, clutching her pillow, as if proximity could reverse time. Laura came often, bringing food I rarely touched. She cleaned, sat with me, sometimes simply held me when I broke down. One evening, she arrived with a small wooden box. She set it on the table gently, her eyes red. "Your mother gave this to me months ago," she said softly. "She asked me to keep it until the end. She said you'd know when to open it." My hands trembled as I reached for the box. It was simple, smooth oak, the latch delicate. My chest tightened with both dread and longing. "Do you want me to stay?" Laura asked gently. I shook my head. "I need to do this alone." She nodded, pressing a kiss to my temple before leaving. The box sat before me, small yet impossibly heavy. I opened it slowly, my breath catching. Inside lay an envelope, my name written in Mom's graceful hand. Beneath it, a folded scarf, one she used to wear on chilly mornings, still faintly carrying her perfume. I lifted the letter, my vision blurring as I traced the familiar handwriting. Carefully, I unfolded it. "My dearest Clara, if you're reading this, it means I am no longer beside you. I wish I could spare you this pain, but life is both cruel and beautiful, and we cannot escape either part. You have been my joy, Clara. From the moment I first held you, I knew you would be my light. I have seen you grow into someone kind, brave, and stronger than you realize. Do not doubt yourself, even when others try to make you feel small. There are things you must know. Vivian has been lost for a long time. I do not say this to make you hate her, but to make you understand. Daniel has filled her ears with poison, convincing her that love is weakness, that wealth is power. I feared what his presence would bring, and I see now that my fears were true.
Protect yourself from them.
They will try to break you, but remember, you are not theirs to break. Most of all, promise me you will keep your light, your art, your heart, your gentleness. These are gifts the world desperately needs. Do not bury them in grief or bitterness. Share them, live them, and when the nights feel too dark, know that I am still with you. In every sunrise, in every quiet breath of wind, I am there. My love for you will never end. Always.
Mom.
The letter slipped from my hands, landing on the table as I collapsed into sobs. The words carved through me, equal parts balm and wound. She knew. She had seen everything, even the things I tried to hide. And she had left me with a choice, not just to grieve, but to live. The following days were both heavier and lighter. I carried her words like a secret flame inside me. Vivian returned to her city life with Daniel, barely acknowledging me beyond curt nods. She hadn't asked about the box, and I didn't tell her. Some truths were mine alone now. Laura stayed close, watching me carefully. "You're quieter," she said one morning as we walked by the frozen garden. "I'm listening," I replied softly. "To what?" I pressed a hand to my chest.
To her.
"She's still here, somehow. I can feel it." Laura squeezed my arm, tears in her eyes. "Then hold on to that." I nodded, knowing I would. At night, I returned to my easel. For weeks, the canvas had sat blank, mocking me. But now, I picked up my brush. I painted the sunrise. Not as it was, but as I remembered it with her. Gold spilling over the horizon, light breaking through darkness. The colors bled with both grief and love, each stroke a conversation with her memory. By dawn, the canvas glowed. I sat before it, exhausted yet alive, whispering to the empty room. "I kept my promise, Mom. I kept the light." And for the first time since her death, I felt something like hope stir in my chest. Weeks turned into months. Winter melted into a slow, hesitant spring. The garden, once bare, showed small signs of life. Green shoots pushing through the thawing soil, stubborn in their return. I spent my mornings there, wrapped in Mom's scarf, watching the world revive itself. Sometimes I spoke aloud, imagining her answers carried back to me on the breeze. It wasn't the same, but it was enough to keep me standing. Vivian and Daniel visited less and less. Rumors reached me from neighbors and townsfolk, business deals faltering, debts piling up. Daniel's charm was wearing thin, his promises unraveling. Vivian's once perfect image began to crack. Whispers of shouting matches, of cold silences between them, spread like wildfire. One afternoon, Vivian appeared at the guest house alone. Her eyes were ringed with exhaustion, her smile brittle. "Clara," she began, her voice shaky. I don't know what to do. Daniel's gone. He left me with nothing." I studied her, the sister who had once been my rival, my burden, my pain. She looked small now, fragile in a way I'd never seen. "You still have choices," I said quietly. Tears welled in her eyes. "I don't deserve your kindness." "Maybe not," I admitted. "But Mom would want me to offer it." For the first time in years, Vivian broke down, sobbing into her hands. I sat beside her, silent, letting the storm pass. We weren't healed. Not yet. Maybe never fully. But something shifted, grief softening the sharp edges of resentment. The letter from Mom became my anchor. I kept it folded in my pocket whenever I left the house, the paper worn but strong. When doubt crept in, I touched it, hearing her voice. "Keep your light." I painted constantly, sunrises, flowers breaking through snow, hands reaching for each other. My work began to spread quietly through the town. A gallery owner asked to display one of my pieces, and I agreed, not for recognition, but because sharing them felt like sharing her. At the opening, strangers stood before my paintings, some wiping tears, others smiling softly. I watched them and thought, she was right. The world needs this. One evening, Laura joined me in the garden as the sun dipped low, the sky ablaze with color. "You've changed," she said gently. "I had to," I replied. "Otherwise the darkness would have swallowed me." She smiled, linking her arm with mine. "Your mother would be proud." "I hope so," I whispered, my throat tight. We stood in silence as the first stars appeared, the garden bathed in twilight. For the first time since her passing, I felt peace settle over me. Not the absence of grief, but the presence of something greater. Love. Memory.
Light.
In the months that followed, I learned to live differently. Vivian moved to a smaller place in town, humbled but slowly rebuilding. Our conversations were careful, tentative, but they existed, and that was a start. Daniel vanished entirely, his empire crumbling like sand. His absence was its own kind of justice. As for me, I kept painting. I kept walking through the garden. I kept writing letters to Mom, tucking them into the soil beneath new blooms, letting the earth hold them. And every morning, I greeted the sunrise with the same whispered words. I kept my promise.